Welcome back to another episode of the Hubscale Podcast. Today we have Garrett Souza, the VP of Worldwide Sales at Series D application security company Semgrep. Garrett, welcome. How are you?
I'm great, Nathan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all. Great to host you. Just so the viewers know, please give yourself an introduction around your background and a brief overview of how you got to where you are today.
So Garrett Souza, head of worldwide sales here at Semgrep. Been here about 6 months. Early career, the modern part of my career, almost 8 years at Ping Identity. Great run there. Very much sort of startup to scale up mode. Moved over to Sneak. Spent about 2.5 years in a hyper growth mode at Sneak, where we were really trying to solve a problem that had not been solved yet in the security space. Took a slight detour out of security into data and analytics for actually a company I think you're familiar with based in Manchester.
Down the road.
Just down the road, Matillion. And had a great almost 3 years there, great people, very much in a growing product in the data and analytics space, working closely with Snowflake and Databricks to do data integration there. And then in January, moved over to lead up our team here at Semgrep. And it's been a great first 6 months.
Nice. Talk to us about the start of that journey in security then with Ping, because you were there for 7 years, started out as an IC, did really well, and then you moved into that leadership role. So talk to me about the journey you went on there, and also touch on how you actually found the transition from IC to leadership.
Yeah, Ping Identity was a great journey based in Denver, Colorado. I came there as an inside sales rep. At the time, Ping had a sort of paired model where an inside sales rep and a field rep shared a large TCV quota at the time for a big geo. And so worked closely for about 4.5 years in that role. It was about 6 months as an inside sales rep and then moved into a field rep pretty quickly. The company was kind of at the forefront of the identity and access management space. They were the first real company to build standards around single sign-on. And so caught that, the time at Ping really in the wave of adoption around that, working with big Fortune 500 customers. I spent 4.5 years as an individual contributor at Ping. We joined, we were about 20 to 25 million. Almost 8 years later, we had gone through two exits, one to private equity, and then private equity took us public, and about 300 million, and I think 1,500 employees. Really, I think a couple things stood out about Ping. Culture, the CEO of Ping had this concept of, your culture is a 10-10. It's 10 in performance and competitiveness, but it's also in 10 in, enjoying what you do, enjoying coming to work every day. The sort of camaraderie that you built around that was really important, and not to take ourselves too serious, right? Kind of life was too short to take yourselves too serious. That was my first intro into what it felt like to really be in a boat where everybody had an oar and everybody was rowing. That was my, I always look back fondly of the time at Ping. I think you asked on transition to leadership. I'd always wanted to lead, kind of from an early age. I don't know that I was quite ready to go do it when I did. Transparently at Ping, I probably wanted to sell for a few more years. Was fortunate enough to have a great team around me and have had some great financial success there as an individual contributor. But I felt like, got approached by the CRO at the time, and some of the sales leaders that, hey, we really want you to do it now. We think it's the right play. And I just felt like from a support function, you're going to screw up, right? Your first year, especially as a sales leader, you're going to screw some things up. And I certainly did. But having that backbone of you being a known commodity to people at the company, felt like having a support system was the right place to go into that role. And I'm glad I did. I don't regret that at all. Kind of haven't looked back since.
Yeah, it's awesome that you had a really good support structure there from, sounds like VP of sales and the CRO's back in to go and take on that role, which is which is awesome. And as you say, it sounds like it's less pressure than maybe being drafted in as an existing sales manager, if you've got that backing and support. And yeah, those two exits, not everyone achieves two exits in their lifetime, never mind two exits in the same business, right? So congrats on those outcomes. Awesome to see. And then you moved over into Sneak as an enterprise sales leader for the Americas. How was the transition going back into a startup? Talk to me about some of your achievements there and that 2.5 year journey with those guys.
Yeah, I think we kind of identified that, had a great run at Ping. I identified, um, but I knew to go be a number one somewhere and to have like the true career experience, like I needed to go do it somewhere else. I needed to go do it outside of my network, frankly. Sneak was a company I knew no one from, but the value proposition of shifting security left at the time made a lot of sense to me. I had experienced Ping was a great product for security folks, but maybe lacked getting deployed well in a developer workflow. So the value proposition that Sneak was talking about in the early days really really held true for me, and that was one of the reasons I became interested in there. Got hired by the CRO to really build the enterprise function. When I had joined, the team was primarily London and Boston based, really without an enterprise sales team. I think they had one or two folks in the business that were, real enterprise sellers, but certainly didn't have an enterprise sales process, an enterprise ICP, all the things that, enterprise sales leaders want to build and take pride in building, we didn't have. And so, luckily, the product was phenomenal. I could see the transition of, you were this product-led growth motion the
Mm,
first few years of Sneak, and the company had done really well with that. And you could see that when you got it in front of enterprise customers, a light bulb had gone off. And yeah, we had to build some more enterprise features that first year that we were building the team out. But you could see that this was going to be something, and it certainly was in the early days.
yeah, awesome stuff. And then moved over to Matillion, as you mentioned, a little bit of a left field move away from security, and you took on a bit more of a broader scope there, not just running enterprise sales, but covering pre-sales, channel, for the Americas. How did you find encompassing that into your remit on top of enterprise sales as well?
That's what I was missing, right? I mean, I'd certainly worked alongside sales engineers and partners and SDRs and customer success in my career as an IC and as a person leading teams, but I'd never owned those functions before. And so, Matillion, a UK-based company, the former sales leader, go-to-market leader at Ping, had now come over to Matillion and had reached out to me, and the proposal was to come run as sort of a GM. Officially for the US for a UK based company. It just felt like as there was nothing wrong with Sneak, right? At the time, it wasn't something where I was actively looking. Great team. The company had experienced really strong growth in the 2.5 years I was there, but just sort of the skill acquisition opportunity, to lead SEs and partner folks and I'd done SDR before, but having another shot at SDR and as well as customer success was really interesting. And the not at all regret moving over there. It was a space that I knew nothing about. I mean, I'd never heard of the company. Knew very little about Snowflake and Databricks, or cloud data warehousing. So I think like learning the technology was a challenge and something that I wanted to take on. It was a later stage company, right? This was not your startup mode. It was a bit later stage and a bit lower growth. Learned a ton on people management there, right? We, kind of leading through the good times and the tougher times. That was 2022, 23, not the easiest moment in tech for a lot of folks.
Very
Um,
difficult. I remember it. It's very tough
yeah,
for everyone.
yeah, but I think Matillion and our leadership team there embraced that. Like, how do we lead through a tough time? And some of that meant reorganizing the company around where we were strongest. Some of that meant challenging ourselves and our teams with, this might be 6 months or 12 months of a career ladder pause, and how do we help add skills, uh, to your portfolio, so when there is an opportunity here or somewhere else, you're ready to go jump at it. And so that was a great people too, right? The sort of Denver, Manchester co-headquarters was an interesting experiment that I think worked really well. And I'll always look fondly at the time there.
Nice, nice. We need more software companies in Manchester, England. They all seem to form
That's
around
right.
London. So no, love to hear that. And then obviously talk to me now about the journey with Semgrep. Originally, why did you join Semgrep, other than the fact that you would have been the perfect hire on paper based on your experience with AppSec at Sneak and having exits and stuff? But why did you join? What were the real drivers behind that decision?
Nathan, it's a great question. I mean, there were three things that I looked for if I was going to leave Matillion at some point. There were three check boxes and then maybe a few bullet points under those. One was the people. I mean, like having folks that you not only got along with and kind of pass the dinner test, right? If you were on a work trip with somebody, when you checked into the hotel, would you go to dinner or would you go to your room? Like, I always look for the dinner test for folks we hire or folks that I would work with and for. Um, Absolutely, Semgrep checked that box. The second was, the caliber of talent, right? Like, are we building world-class talent at Semgrep? And certainly the founders, it's a very interesting founder story at Semgrep. Certainly the founders had that, started to get to know the rest of the exec team and the folks that were supporting those teams, and found nothing but world-class talent to be a part of, and go spend the next however many years of our lives there. That was a big piece to me. The second was the fit in the market. I mean, I guess, a little bit unfair advantage to know AppSec fairly well from the time at Sneak, and realize that nobody's won that market, right? There are companies that have done well and companies that have made shifts out of sort of like the legacy players in the space that have, companies that have been around for 20 years, but nobody's won the market yet. I think there's certainly reasons for that. Semgrep's, unique view and take was interesting to me. First 4 years of the company, built an open source community and an open source project around, democratizing static application scanning. I thought that was interesting. I talked to a number of CISOs that had nothing but positive things to say about Semgrep. And so, sort of the fit not being a me too, or a nice to have or something complementary, but actually having the ability to be a category changing or
Mm.
category defining product, I really looked for, and Semgrep certainly fits that. And then the stage, I mean, I don't know that I necessarily looked at the funding stage, but just the size of the company, what the 2 and 4 year goals were, right? For the company growth. That's what I've always done. I don't know that I set out 20 years ago that was being a scale person was what I would do, but it certainly has worked out that way in my career. And so, sort of seeing around the bend and seeing what's next, it made a lot of sense. And I viewed that at Semgrep, that I could help, right? I kind of had a few different playbooks and still do for this next phase of growth where, I think certainly the company had done incredibly well up to that point. But probably needed like the next tools to go scale and grow. And I'd seen that, I'd done it, I'd done this periphery to it, and had done it deeply at a few of the places that I've been. And so that was probably the next piece.
Sounds like they've had their product market fit nailed. They just needed someone like yourself to come in and execute some repeatable sales processes across the go-to-market function, which is fantastic to see. Talk to me about the remit you're encompassing at the moment. Sounds like you're a second line leader as well. Worldwide sales are now rolling up into you. How have you found that rather than just focusing on the US?
I mean, learning experience. I've not done Asia Pac before, have not done all those uh, to run things off of. Look, I think the general playbook is the same, right? Our view of international is, you know, Semgrep's because of the open source background to Semgrep, it's interesting. Like there's no real geographical limits, right? There's no walls. You don't have to go invest in 15 people and a couple $1 million in marketing budget to open up a market. There are folks globally that use Semgrep. So you've got some friendlies and you've got some brand recognition. But for us, we think about it, our first year or first 6 months, it's sort of special forces type of operation. We're gonna drop a sales engineer and an account executive, into the market. We've just done this with Asia Pac this year in Singapore,
Nice.
without an incredible amount of resources, right? It's sort of exploratory for us. We see those teams get to a certain amount of revenue. We get to see the teams get to a certain amount of pipeline. Then we start to really invest in it. So we're sort of in year one of that in Asia Pac. We're in probably year two of that in EMEA, where now we've started to invest in marketing functions and customer success functions and things like that. But there's a ton of opportunity globally for Semgrep, and a lot of that starts with the open source backbone.
Hmm. If you could
But
summarize a
remit,
couple,
go ahead, Nathan. Sorry.
I was just going to say, what are a couple of key USPs would you say for Semgrep that make you guys stand out? And you don't have to go into immense technical detail here, but just on a high level, what are some Semgrep, USPs that make you guys stand out?
Yeah, for the non-application security folks that might be listening, Semgrep's an architectural plan reviewer for code, right? For source code. So think of, I'm an architect. I've built a blueprint. We've started building the building or the home. But before we get too far, we want to see what in that code is vulnerable, either vulnerable today or could be vulnerable in the future, because it's an incredibly amount, it's much cheaper, and it's much quicker to fix those vulnerabilities as you're building it rather than, hey, the foundation's laid, bricks are going up, roofs are going on, and then we find an architectural defect. So that, at a high level, that is what Semgrep does. Semgrep's, specific play, and the folks that are in security will understand this. This is not a new concept. Static application scanning, open source supply chain scanning has been around and actually been a compliance requirement for a long time. But the industry has failed our customers. Like very truly, we have given people a lot of signal and a lot of noise of what could be wrong in their code potentially. Semgrep's really the first company to do it at scale, where we can actually very simply customize this scanning technology to your code base to give you a deep understanding of, these 5 things are actual issues you need to work on, or these 50 things, hey, because a scanner that isn't Semgrep thought it could be vulnerable but didn't have the deep source code analysis that Semgrep does, it flagged everything. Semgrep's going to flag those 5 things and tell you those 50 things are actually not something you need to worry about. And so that's, Semgrep's always done a good job of that. What Semgrep's done in the last 6 to 12 months is we've layered in some LLM work within the platform, allowing really strong remediation advice for developers that have gotten scanning set up in their source code repository,
Mm.
and gives you, hey, you should upgrade to this. This is a breaking change. Don't upgrade to that because that's going to break your code base. As well as the ability to write custom rules, which customize Semgrep into your code base through human language rather than a coding language. So it's sort of democratized the ability for really customizing Semgrep to fit your code base and made it much easier than it was before. Historically, it was big security engineering teams that had a lot of security engineers got the most value out of Semgrep. Now it's everybody. That's where sort of the LLM work has really come in, and Semgrep, owning the inputs because we own our scanning engine, has made that, we think, above and beyond the competitors and the other players in the space.
Sounds like you guys are a must-have rather than a nice-to-have as well, which is why I imagine you guys have been able to grow and scale so quickly, which is fantastic to see. That brings me on to the plans for the next 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. What do they look like? What are your aggressive goals in terms of maybe revenue growth, headcount growth, region and geographical expansion? What does all that look like?
Yeah, we are very much in scale mode and scale now. The company's I think 7x growth in the last 2.5 years. The commercial part of Semgrep has only really been around for about 3.5 years. The company's been around for 7, but the first, four, 3.5 or 4 were very much built on the open source community. The commercial version has been around much less, and experienced rapid growth in that time, and rapid growth from a lot of conversions from what we call Community Edition, Semgrep Community Edition, that have now crossed the chasm into the paid version. A lot around sort of that AI work and LLM work that's built into the platform. Um, uh, but also from inbounds, right? That's how the company's been built to date. We will continue to do that. We'll continue to have this great brand awareness, but our view now is, hey, let's go scale this thing into through partnerships, through the channel, through going into different geos, both in North America but also internationally. So we are in sort of like double year-over-year mode, both in headcount and our go-to-market function, certainly in revenue as well.
Mm. Fantastic to see. And what compelling reasons might you give for a sales rep or a sales engineer or a customer success manager to come and join Semgrep over the next couple of months, the next 6 months or so?
You always think about, I think if you're an individual contributor or even a leader, looking to come to a growth stage company or a scale stage company, because I've been one, and the things we've looked for are, how many people are hitting quota, right? How many people know about Semgrep, and what's the reputation like, right? Are the deals that Semgrep did in the early days, are they renewing, right? It can't just be vaporware. It's got to be usable and functional for the market. Semgrep's now on its third and fourth renewal cycle with a lot of our early customers, and have an incredible, gross retention rate and net retention rate. And so those are things I would look for. I think, we have scratched the surface in a lot of geos, and some geos where we've just barely took a fingernail to that surface and just have a few customers. If you're a builder, if you're a pioneer, if you want to come in and sort of be more than just an AE on a spreadsheet, frankly, that has a quota assigned to it, but want to be a builder and want to help build a channel motion and a partner motion, and you want to go win customers that are in a geo that will speak on our behalf, and you're kind of customer obsessed and customer focused, it's a good fit for you. It is an incredible time to be here. When we drop an AE in a territory, we've got a full playbook around that AE. So this is not, here's your laptop and your quota and your couple days of enablement through a slide deck. Good luck, right? This is not one of those places. We've seen that. We've really tried to surround our teams and do it thoughtfully. When we want to go into a new market, we've got a play that works to go do that. We've got events set up before you start. You're not walking into an empty territory. So that's not only important for the AEs, but it's important for our leadership team and getting folks productive quickly.
Nice. Really look forward to seeing what you guys are going to achieve over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, even if there's an exit at the end. Garrett, it's been awesome hosting you today. We'll have to catch up in about a year's time, see what progress has been made and talk then.
Awesome, Nathan. That sounds great. Thanks for having me.